All right, everyone, welcome back to the Be Healthy and Thrive podcast. It is Brianna here, your host, and joining me today on the topic of money management, but specifically how to attain financial freedom, no matter what your salary, is Melanie McTaggart. Thanks so much for being here, Melanie.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Yay, finally here. So just tell me a little bit, tell me a little bit about yourself, about your company, what you do, and what you do with your clients, and within detail.
Sure. So I got the idea for this company actually almost exactly a year ago. I think it was Saturday was our 1-year anniversary. The name of the company is Fin Detail Limited, and I'm a solopreneur, so founder and managing director.
Yeah.
And then in terms of why I got into business, I fell in love really with QuickBooks Online through a lot of free, amazing, I love that they do free training, and got advanced certified. Then, got normal certified, then I got advanced certified, and that's when I truly discovered the power that online app has to offer for local businesses. And it's not just that QuickBooks Online, Intuit made the brave decision to open themselves up to other developers. So there's a whole ecosystem of apps that integrate with QuickBooks that are literally changing the face of accounting world for small businesses. So I wanted to be a part of it and help the Cayman Islands get on board with it.
So beautiful. I think I just remember when we first met a few months ago, just hearing the way you described it, it just spoke to my heart, because I think you just have a heart to really see people rewrite their financial story. Well, one, to look at where their financial story is, and then to rewrite it in a way that, to actually attain that financial freedom they want. And I think it's so necessary.
That's exactly it.
I just said your message.
Yeah, that's my mission statement.
Yeah. So kind of what got you, and I know, we're both from the Cayman Islands, where accounting is obviously a really big profession, but kind of tell me a little bit about your story and why you chose to go into accounting.
So it wasn't even a choice, I don't feel like. I think I was born to be an accountant.
Yeah.
My mom, she's worked in treasury for over 25 years now, I think. And she's not an accountant per se, but she does, deals with that sort of work in her day-to-day life and loves it. And I am literally the spitting image of my mom. So she saw very on that I kind of analyze things, see things in a if-then framework, just like she does. And that reasoning really made accounting the first language that I fell in love with. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could read all day long. I respect the fact that people can do what I can't do. I don't get words in terms of like a gift, but I love numbers. Mm-hmm. So accounting just seemed like the right fit. I didn't even explore other things. I went straight to Ernst & Young because, on island, kind of unfortunately in a way, and it's no fault of anyone's, that the structure that the island is as a financial, the kind of hub for supporting the hedge fund industry and whatnot. Audit is like the big thing you think of when you're like, well, I have an interest in accounting. You think to become successful in that field on island, that means I have to be an auditor. So I joined audit at EY, learned a ton, really grateful, had a ton of great mentors. I learned so much there, but quickly learned also that audit wasn't like the right fit for me. I just didn't feel the fulfillment because I was missing the client contact, I feel like, was a big thing for me. From day one, I've always been someone that I just internally want to help people, and I feel like I wasn't doing that. I felt like I was just kind of a cog. So I said, when I found QuickBooks online and realized I can do what I love, and I kind of sat with it for a while, and I was like, if I could write down a perfect job description for myself, what I would want to see in the newspaper, I did that, and I created a company that allowed me to do those things, and kind of went against the stereotype of you have to be an auditor in Cayman.
Wow, I love it. I love that one, you knew what you were passionate about and knew that it's a gift and you still wanted to do it, but you would found the way. You almost crafted your own way of doing it to really help the people.
Yeah, and that's also, like, I just want other young Caymanians to know, like, it's not just, you have to be an auditor, you have to be a lawyer. I mean, for some people that is their calling, but if your calling is something else, but you're passionate about the underlying field, create your own space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so powerful. I love what you do. So tell me a little bit more about, you kind of titled this thing, how to attain financial freedom no matter what salary. So tell me what, your journey with financial freedom, or even what you kind of mean by that. How can people have financial freedom no matter what their salary?
Sure. So I kind of define financial freedom because of the relationship I've had with money growing up. And the reason why I have this relationship with money that I do is from, I wish I could recall the age, but it's from as far back as I can remember. My mom said, Mel, look, a really wise man told me early on in my career that the first thing you do with your paycheck at the end of the month, look at it, calculate a percentage of it, and put it away. Go to credit union, go to another bank that you don't, see on your regular online banking, put it somewhere that you don't go to regularly and would be a pain to get to, and let it sit there and be there for you when you really want to indulge in something you are passionate about or, have dreams about. And that's what I did. So let me think. I think pretty much from the get-go, I started allocating 10%, and I took that check to credit union because that was, my mom had set me up with one of those accounts from the time I think I was born, because she started putting a portion of her paycheck into it for me until I got old enough to do it. And so what that led to was what I view as financial freedom, which is before I even go further, the reason why that worked was, and the important part being that you have to make it somewhere inconvenient, is because what's not available, you can't spend. And what you don't see, you don't miss. So, like, we as humans, like we all know, are very innovative and creative creatures. So I can say, as a solopreneur that started off with one client and a very small one at that, actually, it's a funny story, but it was a client in New York that knew me from my old hedge fund days, and so that was my beginning with In Detail. And it was very, tight to begin with, and I made it work, and I didn't want to take out a loan, and I was like, I need to find a way. And you really can find ways to cut money if it's not there. And I didn't want any outside financing. I didn't want to dip into my savings at credit union. So I made it work. And I believe all of us can make it work with less than we think we can. But I mean, that's not ideal. Obviously, you want to be comfortable, but I'm just making that point that you get by in creative ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, going back to my personal story with money, doing that 10% allocation from my employer's paycheck at the end of each month, that allowed me to, for instance, let me give a good emotional moment with my money. Okay, so I rescued a horse back in October 2015. And when I say rescue, this horse was emaciated, skin and bones when I found him. And now he is, if anything, overweight and happy. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I went straight, I know a lot of people throw around, oh, I don't care about material things. But at the end of the day, I'm not a material person, but there's things in life I'm super passionate about. And you need money to do those passionate things you're passionate about. I'm passionate about horses. I have no qualms spending money on my horse because, it gives me gratification to see him happy with his carrots or whatever it may be I'm buying for him. So in life, you need the money to spend on things that you care about. And with that money, I put ahead in credit union for myself for when I wanted to spend it on my passions and dreams. I bought my horse, for one. I call it an adoption fee. I set him up down on my grandfather's land where my uncle happened to sell his horse. So I moved him in there, but it was like limited facilities. So I added on facilities. This is like, sorry, sharing so much horsey details, but I created like a little tack shed and what else did I do with my money? A little wash bay. So you get the idea. I had that money available and wasn't worried about spending it. And for me, that's financial freedom. So that's in a nutshell how I view financial freedom, is the freedom to do, have that money building up in reserve and available for you to spend without worry if on something you're passionate about or on those rainy days.
I love that.
Getting away from the paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because you're right. And I think, we were talking about earlier how just even if someone has, regardless if they have $15,000 or $2,500, having more than the other does not mean necessarily you're financially free. Because as you put in your notes, like some people, when you have more, you tend to want to spend more. And so
but it's so funny, human nature. It's so funny because I've seen it personally and I've seen it in business, and it's the same problem. We as humans are programmed to eat what's in front of us. We're taught from the age of a month or whatever it is when we start eating. I don't know, baby development. But you eat everything on your plate before you go to bed. So that's literally how we've been programmed. So, I mean, you can't expect anything different. I'm obsessed with neuroscience at the moment. So I'm listening to a book called Brainfluence. And it is the most eye-opening book because it talks about all the neuroscience behind what leads us to do things that we're not even aware or influencing our behavior, but we're pre-programmed to do it. And it's like, oh God, yeah, I kind of do that. And this is why.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me a little bit then, like, what do you do with your clients that you work with now? Kind of what are some of the things that you worked on? Because you talked about this concept that you and I know well around paying yourself first, taking that profit first. Is that the sort of things you work on? And yeah, just tell us what you do.
Absolutely, because that's why I got into business. I was like, I see it personally that it works for me. I could do it with my employer's paycheck. I can do it in my business. I got into business and I had my little profit account from the start, and I put away that money each month, even though it was a small amount. And yeah, I have paid for some trips to see my sister in Orlando through my profit distribution, which I make quarterly. What else have I done? Those are the big spends I've made. So I do little splurges and enjoy them because, I got into business. It's a lot of risk. Our businesses, because we take on that risk as shareholders, we should operate it just like we would if we were a shareholder of a, big listed company. We would want dividends. So I make my business give me dividends. And yeah. Yeah, it was a hope. I was like, well, it worked personally for me. Let me see if it works for my business. And it's so funny. As I started doing it, I was introduced to this, or not even introduced, I came across, because I'm always reading. And when I started my business, I started just delving into every recommended entrepreneurs book list. So one that I hit early on was by Mike McAllowitz called Profit First. And in his book, he literally tells you, he breaks it down in a different way than I had thought about it before. And it makes sense for businesses completely. And I use it now for my business as well as any client that I do financial advisory for. But yeah, he was literally preaching about the same thing I've lived my life doing and run my business doing. So I'm like, I need to become this guy's best friend and join his minions because I believe it and it works.
And I think what's just so beautiful is I love that you kind of give people this space where maybe that wasn't their story their whole life, because maybe not everyone was necessarily fortunate enough to have this concept instilled in them from a young age, right? But I love that you see how you're so passionate about and see how much it's worked in your own life and in your business that you're like, well, I need to help others in this because this is the way to go, paying yourself first, and just to give them grace in the journey too, and help them see like it's okay if you haven't always done this. There's time now to start, right? And I'm the type of person where when I learn something that I should have been doing, but I didn't know about it, I get so freaked out and I'm like, I got to do it, But I think what I love about even the pay it yourself first or profit first, the concept is just the idea of starting somewhere. Like, if it's 1%, 2%, 5%, 10% of just the act itself of doing that is what we need to practice.
It proves it. Yeah. And actually what I do, not to go too much into the nitty gritty, because I don't want to bore people that aren't running a business, but basically what I do with my clients is I do what's called the reason why my company is called Fin Detail is because I kind of word smash the word financial and detail together because I knew that's what I was passionate about. So the first thing I conduct with a client after my initial meeting with them where they decide whether or not they want to, pursue anything with me, if I'm a good fit for them, I conduct a thing I call a Fin Story Health Check. And that, like you just alluded to, is kind of alarming for them because they've never viewed, they knew that they weren't making a profit. They knew that they weren't paying themselves enough. But like, you know, at a very high level, but they didn't know how to get the numbers. You know, a lot of people, business owners, they can talk at length about, you know, the story of their company, their, you know, the mission and their employees and whatnot. But when you talk about their financial story with them, they don't really, it's not comfortable. It's something that's done for record keeping, but all they really look at the end of the day is they log in, check their bank balance, and they make decisions, because they aren't accountants, they aren't consultants, they're not built to be passionate about what I am or in other people like me are. So we have coaches for everything nowadays. So my whole mission is, why not get a coach that cares about the thing that you kind of are uncomfortable with, helps you have that uncomfortable health check, which when I run the numbers and show them where they're at in terms of, okay, this is your real revenue. What percentage of that over the last 12 months that you've been in existence? So that's the span of time I do my health check on, either the last 12 months or how long they've been in operation. And then I look at the totals for that span, right? So I start with real revenue, which is let's call it the 100%. And then I look at how much went to profit in terms of a percentage number, how much went to owner's compensation, and that's what you're paying yourself owner-wise as a salary, and what went to operating expenses. So anything that didn't fall into what was left over, what you paid yourself as compensation, falls into operating expenses. So that's things like utilities, employee salaries, you name it. It's everything. That's the number that tends to kind of scare people. And then we look at that percentage, and I say, they kind of like almost look like they want to cry. And then I'm like, it's okay. We do this as a starting to show us, you know, how happy, or, you know, the roadmap of where we started and where we're getting to. And I say, you know, overall, I think this is the pie in the sky target allocation. And let's give a number to that. So I say, I think you should be generating 10% profit, allocating 60% to operating expenses, and paying yourself 30% of your real revenue. Is that making sense so far?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, cool. So I'm like, that's the end goal. But just to prove my concept to you and to prove it that it works. If it doesn't work, if we're not a good fit, we can end this engagement whenever you want, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I say it doesn't start from going from, and I'll tell you, the number in the profit is negative often. The owner's compensation is little to nothing. Like, they're paying themselves barely anything, and they're spending a ton in operating expenses. Without fail, that is how it's been to date with the health check. Mm-hmm. And then I say, don't panic, right? We just need to know where we're starting. And then I say, what would happen if we move this number by 1% per month? And then I show them the dollar amount that would mean, and how that would get us towards that pie in the sky of 10, 30, 60. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's a whole lot easier for them to, you know, they're like, okay, I can do that. And once they do that month and have proved to themselves, oh God, this really works. Actually, I didn't do one. I did, you know, I managed to move 2 from operating expenses into owner's compensation, and now I got to pay myself a little more. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And like, it starts with small. but you prove it slowly, and you turn something that you were waiting to happen somewhere down the road, hoping for. A lot of entrepreneurs are like, oh, profit. Well, we'll get to that. Hopefully that's the end goal, but we don't know when that'll happen. But what I aim to do is make, just like my mom made it for me when I was growing up. Savings was a habit. Profit should be a habit in your business too. And that's my take on it.
Love it. So then what, I think people kind of definitely get an idea of what you do. So if people wanted to kind of just learn more about you, get in touch with you, how would they best do that? Is it through social media, through email? Where are you hanging out?
Okay, so I will be completely brutally honest. I have never been great with Facebook, but I am making that my November mission to get better. And I have someone that's graciously helped me a lot. So I now have, I from day one, I was like, yay, so Squarespace. Everyone, that's the one I heard about for building a website. And I had fun with that because I'm kind of artsy as well. I always said, like, if I didn't do numbers, I'd find a way to do art. But I went online, created my website. I think I created my Facebook page pretty early on as well, but I never put much into it because I wasn't aware of the functionality. But I'm getting there, and that's going to start rolling out a whole lot more starting November. It's all in my diary. And yeah, so you can go to get the very, clear story. You can go to my website, or you can go to, hopefully Facebook will start to look a lot different soon, but it's active.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram. So Bendito all the way, you can find it in any of those things.
Awesome. And then, so just to wrap up, maybe tell us a little bit about your awesome giveaway that you are going to work on giving to people in these upcoming months.
Sure. So I owe this little giveaway to you because over our little coffee conversation, I was like bouncing around the idea that I've been bouncing around in my own head for a while. I love, love, love working with small businesses, but I also realize that there's what seems to be kind of like a vacuum out there for personal financial planning that's accessible, like, and I don't want to say cheap, but cheap, you know what I mean? When I think financial planning, I think, oh God, I need to be a high net worth individual that can afford to hire someone to coach me at the bank. And it sounds like a terrible process. What I want to make it is a fun, easygoing process, kind of like we meet up at a coffee shop and or wherever you're most comfortable. I just like coffee, so I threw that out there. And yeah, I think that this method, as I've been trying to kind of drive home from the start, it works because that's the way, it's human nature. If it works personally, it works in businesses, and I want to help others like myself and other, people that can't afford to bring on big time financial planner to, start putting away money so they can spend on those dreams and on those rainy days that sadly come our ways all the time, or not all the time, hopefully, but that they're going to come. They always, find their way in there. So yeah, I just want to help people find financial freedom. Awesome. So what I'm offering for anyone that listens to this podcast, if they mention it, to me when they email me or call me or Facebook message me, however you want to reach out, I'm there. Just mention that you listen to us, and I'll treat you to coffee, and you can see if, I'm a right fit for you as a personal financial coach, and see if you want to start getting financial freedom.
Love it. Thank you so much. I'm excited for that. I'll be looking for that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'll definitely be sure to link everything you mentioned when we publish this. And I just think you have such a beautiful heart and beautiful gift. And I know people listening, whether it's personal finances or even business finances, can be really blessed by your work.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Yes, be sure to check the corresponding notes and blog that go with this to get all of the links, and stay tuned for our next episode, which will be around kind of money multiplication. So thank you everyone. And thank you, Melanie.
No problem. My pleasure.